Back again, another Furio Watchers video. This one all about some of the amazing hip hop samples taken from tracks that were released during the 1970s. For me, this is one of the key eras where some amazing music was released. Shameless plug as well, I've got a new album out on Bandcamp. 6 albums out now in total. You can stream them for free, you can buy them to keep forever. Give it a check, link in description. Anyway, we're going to dive in and have a check. The way this is going to work, there's going to be so many tracks released from each year of the 70s. So we're going to start with 1970. Let's have a listen. Jack Bruce, who was actually called John Bruce, born in Scotland, he was probably most famous from being in the band Cream. So this is a great album from 1970. It's been sampled quite a few different times. This one, great sample flip by the producers, the Beat Miners. So let's have a listen to this. So Ronald Stein, mainly known for doing movie soundtracks. This one from a film from 1970, Getting Straight. This was also released in 1970 as a 7-inch single, as well as being on the soundtrack. Starring Elliot Gould, who a lot of you will know from Friends. He played Ross and Monica's father in that. This one is one of those replayed samples that Dre likes to use. So it's not actually directly sampled off this. He's had musicians in to recreate it to give it a similar sound. So let's have a listen to this one.
Stop! Now before you walk in the door to the liquor store and try to get money out the drawer,
The Jackson 5. What really can I say about them, apart from legendary group? This track has been sampled quite a lot of different times. The version we're going to look at for this one is the Naughty by Nature track, OPP. Use your imagination and think what OPP stands for. Isaac Hayes, absolute legend. He has been sampled so many different times. This particular track been sampled well over 100 times too. So this is Ike's Mood 1, not to be confused with Ike's Rap, where he did I think 4 different versions of over the years. We're going to listen to a Marley Marl produced beat from the 80s. Biz Markie track, absolutely brilliant. Let's give it a check.
You're in the mood. Just go with the flow, and I can play rapping records and all disco, like Beat It Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Ahmad Jamal, legendary jazz musician who we sadly lost earlier this year. This particular album has been sampled so many different times. The one we're going to look at here is one of Primo's productions, where I think he's done a really great chop on this sample. So let's check this out.
now a queen's a queen and a whore is a whore. She felt if she made me wait, I'd have more respect for her.
Brother Jack McDuff actually started off playing piano and bass before moving on to playing the organ. In the 60s, he was actually in a band with the great jazz guitarist George Benson as well. So in a recent video, I've shown a sample for the remix for this. This is the one that was used on the original track of this. Great Tribe Called Quest track.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario?
Reuben Wilson, someone else we unfortunately lost just last month in May. This sample was used on Nas's debut album, another Primo production. Unlike a lot of Primo's samples, this one isn't chopped, it is just a straight up loop. But again, great track. Let's have a listen.
Know what I'm saying? Big Nas, Grand Wizard. God, what is it like?
This has been sampled on a couple of big tracks. Different part of it was used for Biggie, Who Shot Ya. The one that we're going to listen to now, another great track, produced by the RZA, Genius or Jizza track. Let's have a listen.
Picture bloodbaths and elevator shafts like these murderous rhymes tight from genuine craft. Check the print, swear veterans, spark the letterings.
Barney Kessel, great album. This is one, I managed to pick this up last year for pretty cheap. The guy that owns one of the local record shops near me let me have a free reign of the basement, and in there was about 10,000 completely unsorted records that he just let me dig through, take anything I wanted. Obviously I had to pay for them, but yeah, there was quite a few gems in there. This is one of them. So this Look of Love track, originally by Dusty Springfield, this has been covered so many different times, and this is just one of many different versions that have been covered. The cover versions have also been really popular to be sampled from. This one, a J Dilla production. Let's have a listen.
What is the look? It got something to do with being the man and handling.
Quincy Jones, another sample from a movie soundtrack. This sample has been used so many different times. It's so atmospheric. It's often laid underneath other samples just to give it that really dark atmosphere. Classic use of this, Mobb Deep, Shook Ones Part 2. I've shown the main piano sample from this on a recent video about disguised samples. 2 people have called me out on that, trying to tell me it's not the right sample. I've got the wrong sample for that. It 100% is the right sample. I've done another video where I'm actually showing on the MPC, breaking it down, slowing it down and showing how it's been used. So yeah, give that one a check.
Yeah.
Another Dr. Dre sample where, yet again, he's replayed it. It's not actually sampled directly off the original track, but it is based on this original track. Really big tune, this one. 2-pack track. Let's give it a listen. Such a silly track, this one, if you actually have a listen to it properly. This has been sampled on so many different tracks. The particular one is a really commercial one, but this was a big #1 hit at the time. Let's have a listen. This has been sampled well over 100 times. It's been used by people like Jay-Z, Rex-in-Effect, Ice Cube. The one that we're going to listen to is probably one of the first uses of it by Public Enemy. Great track, let's have a listen.
Public Enemy #1.
Show what you got. Show what you got.
This one's been sampled a few times, been used by M.O.P. The one we're going to check here is the Scarface use of it.
Every day it's been the same old thing on my block. You either working or you're slanging cocaine on my block. You had to hustle, cause that's how we was raised on my block.
And I wonder if you know what it means.
Labi Siffre, actually his first name was actually Claudius. He's a UK musician. He was born in London. Interesting fact here, in the 70s, he released a track called It Must Be Love. That was covered later on in the 80s. That was a big hit for the British group Madness. The track we're going to listen to here, pretty obvious one. It's pretty much a straight lift of those vocals used by Kanye West. Let's give it a listen.
And I wonder
3 is a magic number. Yes, it.
I think you all know what track this has been sampled on. This is a good example of why De La Soul's music has only very recently appeared on streaming things like Spotify. The amount of uncleared samples that they had really prevented them from being able to actually have other stuff on streaming platforms. All that's now been sorted out. Everything has now been cleared. So let's have a listen to it.
3, that's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic.
This is another one where Primo has really chopped up a sample. He's taken just one bit in between the main parts, chopped that up, flipped it into a great track with Rakim. Let's give this one a listen.
It's been a long time.
Another Quincy Jones track there. Famously, this is used on the Far Side on their first album. This was before they were working with Jay Dilla, so it's got a very different production sound on that first album. Let's have a check of this one. Talking to Jay Dilla, this is one that he's used on one of his solo productions. He famously at home did a beat a day, so there was so many of his beat tapes out there, so many unreleased tracks. A lot of them probably won't ever get discovered, but this is one that was put out. We might be going a bit Primo heavy on this video, but this is a great sample. Another one where he has really chopped it up so well. Replayed it in on the MPC. Great track here with Common.
Sense with DJ Premier, we gon' help y'all see clear.
Family Circle, formed in Newark, New Jersey in the 70s. Been sampled a few different times, this one. The Game have used it, Capadonna, J. Cole, and it's the J. Cole version that we're going to have a listen to.
Sat beside me, used to laugh, had mad jokes. The teacher always got mad, so we passed notes. It started off so innocent. She had
This group are from Uruguay, started out in the 60s. They have put out a ridiculous amount of albums. If you go and look into their discography, you'll just see so many different albums that they've released. This sample used on a great track by KRS-One. Let's have a check of this.
When the jam is slow and you need a proceeder, who am I? The MC. When you need a lyrical leader with oratorical triple features.
Miles Davis, obviously legendary jazz musician. This sample was used on Mobb Deep Infamous album. Great little track. Let's give this one a check.
P is on you, what you wanna do?
Whatever party's over, tell the rest of the crew.
Yo, P is on you, what you wanna do?
Yet another Primo production coming up. This is another example of how he's chopped a sample, but instead of chopping it and then replaying it, on this one he's mainly chopped it and then used pauses in between to completely change the rhythm of the track. Works so well with this. Great KRS-One track. Let's have a listen.
Send the flowers now and then. Stop to call.
Famous sample used on Diet Coke by Pusha T. Produced by 88 Keys and Kanye West. This is another one of those chipmunk style samples where it's been really sped up, almost sounds like it's played on 45, gives that high pitched sound to the sample and to the vocals.
Imaginary players aiming coach right. Master recipes under stove lights. The number on his jersey is the quote price.
Bob James Nautilus. This is one of the most ever sampled tracks in hip hop. Off Bob James's very first album, this, I would really recommend you have a listen to that entire album. So many great tracks on it, and pretty much every one, as you're listening, you will start to recognise famous tracks that have used samples from it. Absolute masterpiece of an album. So many different tracks I could use to demo this. Particular one I've picked out for this one is the Ghostface Killer track produced by RZA. Let's give it a listen.
Fly joints, the character points, Corolla, Motorola, holder, playing guard, he pack over the shoulder.
Off Bob James's second album, another amazing track. I think it's pretty obvious who has used this. Classic track from the 80s, Run DMC. Let's check this one. Grover Washington Jr., another artist, put out over 30 albums over the years, heavily sampled. This particular track been sampled I think over 100 different times. Many different people that I could show here. So let's check what we've got. Love Unlimited Orchestra, which was put together by Barry White. It was his backing group for Barry White and Love Unlimited, which was the vocal version of the group. This has been sampled on a Q-Tip track, Q-Tip and JD working together, Recipe for Success.
Such a vibrant thing, a vibrant thing. And even though we both fly.
Ransal and Group, which were a family group, three brothers, American brothers. This has been sampled, flipped really well by the RZA. Let's check this one.
What y'all thought y'all wasn't gonna see me? I'm the Osiris of this shit.
The Fabulous Tramps put quite a few albums out, mainly during the 1970s. This has been sampled on quite a known track by The Game featuring 50 Cent. Let's have a listen.
Wanna live good, so shit, I sell dope for a 4-finger ring. One of them gold ropes, Nana told me if I...
Another soundtrack sample here. This one off the musical Selma, which was a tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. This is used on a more recent track, not one from the 90s. Let's give it a check.
Percocet, yeah. Miley Percocet, Percocet, yeah. Miley Percocet.
Biz Markie and Marley Marl again with this one. Great track from the 80s, classic hip hop. Let's listen to this.
Yeah, Yes, y'all are killer like beating. You could either dance or just have a seat and listen to the way in what I am displaying.
Primo again, another great example of how he's chopped a sample and just using pauses, he's changed the rhythm of it completely, turn it into a great boom bap track. KRS-One, let's give it a listen.
Rappers are in danger.
Yeah, this is another really popular sample. It's been used on quite a lot of different tracks over the years. For this one, we're going to listen to one of the earlier ones, one from the 80s by EPMD. Interesting thing with this, when you look at the artwork that comes up on screen in a sec, look how EPMD is spelled, because that is how it showed on that original release before they changed it.
MCs out there, you better stand clear. EPMD is a world premiere. From New York, straight talk, America's best.
Brick with Daz, another track that's been sampled many different times over the years. Classic one we're going to check is the Ice Cube version. Absolute diss track to NWA after Ice Cube had left them. You all know the track, but let's have a listen.
Damn, I'm glad y'all set it off. Used to be hard, now you just went soft. First you was down with the AK.
This sample, used by Mad Skills, produced by one of my favourite producers, Large Professor. Absolute great producer he is. Going back to Mad Skills, he released over 20 years wrap-up series where he would just freestyle and absolutely take the piss out of everything that had gone on during that year. Look him up on YouTube. Absolutely hilarious. Well worth checking out if you've not done already.
What you need to do is give faith. Take your spiritual out your body, put it in the higher place. Cause I'ma bring out the Holy Ghost in niggas.
Another amazing Q-Tip track, use this one. Combination again, JD or J Dilla with Q-Tip on the production. Let's give it a listen.
Brand new truck, butter sauce seat, 4 point something with a low ride something.
Johnny Guitar Watson, very popular for using in Dre and Snoop tracks. One of my regular watchers of this channel has told me that this guy is his uncle. So if you're watching, drop some comments, let us know a bit more about him. Share that info with some of the other viewers. This one has been used on a Lady of Rage track produced by Dr. Dre. Let's have a listen to it. The Headhunters, 1970s group formed actually by Herbie Hancock. This sample used on the infamous album by Mobb Deep. Main producer listed on this one, Q-Tip, listed under the name The Abstract. Mobb Deep listed as the co-producers. Let's have a listen.
I think the whole world's going insane. I fill my brain up with zany and drink away the pain. I think the whole world's going insane. I feel what you won't do for love.
Bobby Caldwell, another musician who we lost earlier this year, back in March. This is a really famous sample used on a big track by Tupac. Sure you all know what it is. Let's give it a listen. Brian Bennett, another one of those library records that were produced for film, TV, radio productions. Brian Bennett has appeared on a lot of other different library music records as well. This particular sample has been used many different times over the years. The one we're going to listen to here is an Alchemist production.
Taste this delicious, mystic, malicious, ridiculousness, a tease like my snippets. I'll strip this down to the core and explore.
Gil Scott-Heron, what an absolute legend he was. I've seen him 2.5 times live, and that sounds a bit weird. So saw him once, a few years later, meant to be going seeing him again. We get there, and there's a sign up saying that he's not been allowed into the country. Turns out to do with drugs, customs, wasn't let through, but his band had managed to come over. So they actually played all the instrumental versions of the tracks for free, and then using the same ticket on another occasion, came back, got to see him performing again. So legendary musician there. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Yes, it is the same person that is the actor. In the 70s though, he had some music out. This is another great flip by Primo. He's really chopped this up, flipped it really well into a great track with AZ. Let's have a listen.
Know where we going?
Another great track here by Isaac Hayes. Flipped, used on a Redman track from the 90s. Classic Redman, Tonight's the Night.
Mic check, I can get smooth to any groove. Relax the tongue, let my mic take a cruise around the planet. Packing men like Janet.
This has been flipped and used on a Master Ace Incorporated track. So Master Ace Incorporated is his crew and then his solo stuff just under Master Ace, because I have been asked that recently. Mentioned in a recent video as well, any productions, he goes under the name Ace One. So if you see Ace One, that's who it is, it's Master Ace. Not a lot to say about this one, apart from it's been used on a very, very famous track by Biggie. Let's give it a check. So that's it. Some great samples there from the 1970s. It is quite a long video, so if you've got this far, I appreciate you watching all the way through. If you're liking these reaction videos, drop a comment, leave a like, let us know. Thanks for watching.